When it comes to your portraits, how do you draw attention into your subject? Well, in this video, I want to discuss the specific decisions that are made from composing and shooting the image all the way through to the edit. Let's get into it. My name is Pi. I've been fortunate to create multiple successful companies in the photography space. I'm a photographer, but even more so, I would say I'm an educator and frameworks person. My specialty? Making complex subjects easy for you to master, right here on Adorama TV. What's up, friends? My name is Pi. Welcome to Adorama TV. Let's break this video up into two pieces. First, decisions made for the overall composition to draw attention to our subject. And the second piece is going to be post-production decisions. And we're actually going to work from this raw file to this final image. Let's start by going behind the scenes. So this is an actual client, and this is the pre-wedding event known as the Sangeet. So an Indian wedding will generally have a number of pre-wedding events. This is one of those. And for this event, they rented out the USS Midway. This is an aircraft carrier located in San Diego, and we basically had the entire upper deck for the event itself, as well as their portraits. So you kind of know that we're going to need to work in the airplanes and the awesomeness of this location into our portraits. Now, for all of our couples, not only do we shoot couples portraits, but we also want to create a series of signature portraits of them individually. So here we have the groom. And why am I choosing this specific airplane and backdrop? I want to go through those decisions first. Number one, the sun is coming from the left side. And I believe during this time, the sun was actually setting or had already set. So we have this really soft, natural light that's kind of landing on our subject, creating beautiful highlights. All I need to do is really angle him towards the light. But this specific plane I loved for a couple reasons. Number one, the fuselage, the area, I believe it's called that, okay? The body of the plane, the area directly behind where my client is standing, it's white, it's plain. So it creates this kind of negative space that's perfect for my subject. On top of that, in addition to the plane being an interesting background, the nose of the plane kind of leads into him, and this propeller is doing a nice job framing him as well. The top piece as well as this right side piece framing the body. The only thing is that I'm shooting this actually on the 28-70, and I'm starting kind of wide. This is at 33 millimeters, 1/500 of a second, and f2, and ISO 200. And the first thing that I start to notice is to get the plane and to get his body framed, I'm kind of cropping off the legs, which I don't like. And because I'm shooting so wide, I'm also getting pieces of this that make it feel more like a museum, right? Kind of the other objects and just junk in the scene that I don't want to get. So the first thing compositionally that I do is I actually back up a little bit and then zoom in. So we go to roughly 46 millimeters exact, but this is basically like a 50 millimeter lens, right? So we step back and we zoom in, and he's in the exact same place. And from here, we can get a better framing automatically. We can see a little bit of the legs, so we have shape there. We're not cropping at the hips. We also place him directly under and between the propeller. He's nicely centered in this fuselage area. I love the way it really draws attention into him. On top of that, for all these portraits, I have his chin always angled towards the light. Even when he's looking at the camera, he's still angled towards the light. I'm going to show you why this matters, because in post, we actually want to use those highlights on the skin to kind of lift him out a little bit. So this is our final raw image. You can see all the steps that are done to give us an image that is already drawing attention into our subject while also kind of playing on this really cool backdrop for this event. What we're going to do now is go into post. I'm working in Lightroom Classic. This is the raw file. I'll press Control-Shift-R just so you guys can see there's no funny business. It is completely reset. I'm going to press Command-Apostrophe to create a virtual copy. And we're going to take it to basically this point here or something similar to this point. It's going to be actually quite easy. You're going to start with a preset or a look of your choice. I don't want this tutorial to get super bloated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select from Visual Flow's Mood Pack, Soft Light. This is going to create a nice, moody, cinematic look to this image, which is kind of the vibe that I wanted it to have. But you can choose any editing style, anything that you'd like, okay? I'm choosing Soft Light, by the way, because Visual Flow is all based on lighting conditions. So based on how the image was lit, you choose the appropriate lighting condition, which automatically modifies the image to fit that look based on how it was lit and shot. Okay, so this is what we have right now. Let's go ahead and dial in a white balance. I'll press W to get my white balance selector. I'll click on the fuselage because that looks like it's roughly white-ish. And I might add a tiny bit more magenta just to get a little bit of pinks into it. I see a lot of green right now. Side note, this is kind of to taste, so I want you guys to edit based on what you see. I have a big light that's in my face too, so I'm doing the best that I can with that. I'm going to brighten the image a little. Now, what I want to do here is you notice that everything is roughly the same brightness, okay? I'm going to turn off my information, by the way. So we have a really bright sky, bright fuselage. Everything is roughly the same. And so while the composition kind of leads into our subject, the editing doesn't necessarily help. So we're going to start with this. Let's go ahead and go over to our masking. We're going to click select subject. And one of my favorite things to do is to choose the subject and then to invert it by pressing apostrophe. You can also click the invert checkbox over here. And now it selects just the background. This is perfect because what we're going to do on the background is start to modify. I'm going to pull down the exposure. See, our eyes are naturally drawn to brighter areas of a frame. So by darkening everything else down, we bring attention into our subject. So what we're basically doing is kind of a quick dodge and burn effect to bring attention into our subject. I'm going to pull it down to about here. And if you want, you can make changes to highlights and whites just to further fine tune a bit. What I'm going to do is actually bring the shadows down. Be careful with blacks. I oftentimes see people adding to the blacks, and it can create like this sort of weird effect where it looks like he's lifted off the page because what you have is differing levels of contrast. So it almost looks like he's standing in front of a backdrop when you do this. So I want to keep the overall contrast identical between the two. If you want to turn on the highlight and clipping alert, you can press J as well to do that and to see what you're getting. So right about here, 0.8-ish is good. I don't need to go really much further. This does a great job already. Now let's add another mask. This time it's going to be a radial gradient. We're going to click on his face and pull outwards, make it fairly large. Again, press the apostrophe key to invert. And this is going to be a graduated vignette that we're applying. So it's a vignette that's drawing attention right into him. And we're using the same kind of just exposure adjustment on this side. And if we want to, we could even add another one. We could add a linear gradient from the top and just pull down the corner of the plane where it's a little bit bright on this side. Not too much, just a little bit, like 0.3-ish. So already we've drawn a lot of attention to our subject. The only thing now is our subject is a little bit dark, right? This is one of my favorite tricks. What we're going to do is go back to our mask. We're going to create this and go select subject again. Don't touch exposure here. What I'm going to have you do actually is bring up the highlights. So you're going to bring up the highlights. We're going to bring up a little bit of the white point. And you'll see how your subject is naturally getting lifted off the page, but it's being done in a way where it looks like we're just basically dodging. It looks like localized dodging because those highlights that we're talking about. And this is why I wanted to make sure he was looking the right direction because I want those highlights on the face, right? Those highlights are naturally getting lifted out more. So I'm going to go up to +80. If you want to add in a little bit of exposure, you can. What I would recommend though, if you do that, is keep it subtle and also balance it by adding back a little bit of the shadows so he doesn't get too bright. If again, that contrast is kind of lost, he'll look odd, which means also you want to be very careful with blacks because it can really affect contrast dramatically. So what we're going to do with blacks is bring it down to like -2-ish where he nicely kind of blends into this background. And check this out. From here, we're basically done. If you want to add anything else, you totally can. But this looks absolutely fantastic. And this is the raw file. And this is just a couple adjustments inside of Lightroom. Isn't that wild? Now, if you're detail-oriented like me, this is going to set off your OCD alarms. So I'm going to quickly just go in and heal this guy out real fast so it's not in the shot. But check this out. Zooming out on this image, look at this. Here, we made a bunch of decisions to help us compose in a way that brings attention to our subject. And here we play into that further by making post-processing decisions that again draw into our subject. And what you have at the end of it is quickly and simply an image that just pops, that not only is the image dynamic and interesting to look at, it draws the viewer's attention right into your subject. So that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, y'all know what to do. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications because we have lots of awesome creators creating every single day. On top of that, I love reading your guys' comments. So if you guys have questions, comments, what you want to see, let me know down below. I try to read, well, I read everything. I try to respond to as many things as I possibly can. And in the meantime, if you guys enjoyed what we do, this A to Z style approach to education, you can check out SLR Lounge workshops. You can also check out the presets we used at vfpresets.com. That's it. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.